If you are a respectable member of society, you will be just like me. You will like Zoroark EX. And, well, on my shirt is someone who is not a very respectable member of society. Just thought I should, kind of put him on fraud watch a little bit right now, because today we're talking about Zoroark. And if you've been looking at Twitter and keeping up with the NAIC, the North American International Championships, you'll see that Zoroark has joined a book club. Dragapult was such a mismatch for him that he went and joined a book club. Yeah, he was a little bit bored. So, Zoroark right now is playing Transformation Tomes, and none other than Zoroark guy himself, Tord Reklev, is the reason for that. So, Transformation Tomes, when they were first released, people kind of thought, wait, Zoroark, that makes a bit of sense, right? However, in theory, it was... yeah, not much more than just on paper. It's a book, it's on paper, not on a battlefield. So it wasn't great. The idea was there, the execution was not great. In fact, if you tried it, you were more so to be executed than executing your game plan. There was not much of a game, because Zoroark already struggles with consistency. Now you add 4 shitty cards into your deck, and it becomes worse. Who would have thunk it? Anyway, Tord found a way to kind of make it work. And he added a lot of consistency cards, like Tatsugiri and like Meowth and stuff, because in theory, you can put these into play early, help you set up, and then switch them out, right, into something meaningful at the end of the game. And that's pretty cool. That's a really cool idea, and it works quite often, as, Tord got to top cut at NAIC, and a lot of these book club Zoroarks actually ended up doing really well at NAIC. So, this is the list that did well. However, I do have some issues with this list. Obviously, I'm not a better deck builder than Tord, but I do think that an 8th energy would be quite nice. And Tatsugiri is the thing I look at, right? Tatsugiri is cool. I don't mind Tatsugiri. However, I took out Tatsugiri and put it in an 8th energy, and it just felt better. It just felt great. I'm not gonna lie, it just felt a lot better. Tatsugiri already wasn't doing too much. It was really good in very specific situations. But 8th energy is an 8th energy, right? And when most of your games come down to, did you find 2 energy in 2 turns, or were you able to find 2 energy to discard 1, and then PP it up, and then attach on your second turn, you win, right? You win a lot more than not if you're able to do that, and it's nice. Don't get me wrong. If you get to like if you find energy early on, then 7 energy is fine. But it's just finding that energy early on which is the problem. And 7 energy to 8 energy for some reason just it's like it's night and day. I don't know why, but it just genuinely is. It's very different playing 7 and then 8. I'm not too sure what Zoroark kind of like dark magic does to Zoroark. It's just neuron activation. Holy shit, we have 8 energy. We must now find all of that energy at the same time compared to the 7. But it's just really good, right? And the next card that, I think is okay. Ruffian, right? We're going to just rip the band-aid off. Ruffian is interesting. It's there for the Crossel matchup, but I'm not too sure how much it helps the Crossel matchup. I don't think that matchup is good regardless, right? And I think it'll be fine to kind of cut this card out and, put in another consistency card in here later on. If you want the Tatsugiri, you can keep the Tatsugiri and just cut the Ruffian for the 8th energy, right? But I feel like you can also just add something else, maybe like a 3rd Cyrano or a 3rd Ultra Ball or a 2nd Pokebad or just something. Reshiram if you wanted that, right? Or a 2nd Monkey Dory, whatever. Or a 4th Ends PP up. I like 4th Ends PP up. I took out Ruffian for 4th Ends PP up, and I'm fine, right? I kind of like that because the energies are the main problem, and powering the shit up multiple times is the more important part for Zoroark, in my opinion. Right? And I'm someone who's played a lot of Zoroark. I've been around the block, right? Call me King Von the way I have been around the O block, and when I am playing Zoroark, I at times do feel like King Von. However, at other times I also feel like a fucking coughing baby being curb stomped by Mike Tyson, right? It is a very... It's a deck that has many extremes. There is not many times where you'll play the deck and be like, yeah, it's alright, it's alright. It's either I want to blow my shit smooth off right now, or holy shit, I am blowing your shit smooth off. There is not many games where it's like, ooh, close game. It's usually just gun, or please take whatever you want, right? And that's the fun thing with Zoroark. It's enjoyable. It creates great content, right? It's a streamer's favorite deck, because it is very crash out worthy, but also very worship worthy. It's awesome, right? But let's talk about the tomes. Let's talk about what we're all here for. Everyone knows what Zoroark does. Everyone knows at times it's good and at times it's shit. Usually it's the latter, but besides the point, the tomes are really cool. And they are here kind of as a pseudo Thornton / Turo. So the problem with Zoroark, in my opinion, is, other than energies, it's the bench space, right? Zoroark requires multiple Zoroarks because you want to draw multiple cards, right? You want to use more than one trade. Trade is the reason the deck is like actually a deck. It's okay. Because you get to thin cards and draw cards. It's really good for that. However, without trade it would be bad. So the more trades, the better. But the problem is, you can't have that many Pokemon in play, right? We don't play Terra Pokemon, so we can't have Area Zero. And even if we did have Area Zero, we probably want to play Ents Castle anyway, because maneuverability is cool. So, what happens now when your bench space is Zoroark inactive, 2 Zoroarks on bench, Pekarunt to switch stuff around, an attacker, and then usually a Monkey Dory, right? What happens if you want to bench a Meowth? What happens if you want to bench a Pheasantipity, right? The bench space is very limited, and that's the problem. However, tomes look to kind of fix that. You can kind of go early on and start something like, you don't have to feel that bad about benching Meowth early on, or, for example, Monkey Dory, right? Sometimes you'll bench Monkey Dory and be like, oh, at the end of the game, I really wish I had a bench slot for a Zekrom or a Darmanitan, right? Because sometimes you'll have Darmanitan, you'll have Monkey Dory and Zekrom, and be like, wow, I just don't have bench space for anything else, right, other than Zoroarks. So the bench space becomes a really big problem in many different matchups, especially like grass matchups where you really want to chain Zoroarks. So that means you have to have multiple Zoroarks. You need Pheasantipity as well to just draw as many cards every single turn to keep up with the prize trade, right? If you fall behind in the prize trade in those kinds of matchups, it's bad. And especially with Slotbox winning the event, winning NAIC, it's going to be played more probably. And the thing is that you have to keep up the price trade really good, and you have to be super aggressive, because if they get a Lily's Pearl and they're active, right, it's not the easiest thing to deal with, right? You kind of have to gust around it, or if you don't gust around it, you have to KO that one and then KO make a Kangaskhan on the following turn to keep up your 2-2-2 price trade, but in this case it'll be a 1-3-2 price trade, still equaling to 6. But the thing is, it's not easy to do that, right? And especially if you only have 2 Zoroarks in play, and one of them dies, you have 1 Zoroark in play, maybe Pheasantipity, so you're drawing 5 cards, right? But if you have 3 Zoroarks in play, and Fez, you're drawing a lot more cards than you were without, chaining, focusing on the Zoroarks. And on top of that, you need Petch for the Mochi for the Kangaskhan attack, you need Zekrom, like the attacker, to actually deal damage and stuff. And then on top of that, you might want another support Pokemon. You have to Meowth for something. You might have to Meowth for the boss, because if you have to boss around stuff, sometimes you just might miss that, right? So you might have to bench Meowth. But now, what happens if we bench Meowth, and now we only have, maybe 2 Zoroarks in play, our Zoroark's going to die in the next turn, and we want to get more Zoroarks in play, right? And Meowth is just kind of shit, it's just kind of sitting there. Well, now we can use Transformation Tomes to get that Meowth out of there, bring in another Zoroark, or bring in Fez, or whatever, and just have it a lot more, have that bench slot be a lot more meaningful. It's very nice. Something that I have been doing with this deck is I will bench Meowth with Fez in the discard pile. I will use Meowth to search out a boss. I will Transformation Tome out that Meowth, and then Fez for 3, right? It's really cool. You essentially get to Meowth and Fez at the exact same time for 1 bench slot. It is awesome, right? And you can do similar things like that. For example, you can bench your Fez, and then with a full bench, you can still flip the script and then swap out that for a Zekrom, and now all of a sudden you have an attacker, and you got to draw those 3 cards. So it lets you do some really cool stuff, but it also lets you protect your board. So for example, let's say your opponent needs 2 prize cards to win, but they don't have a good way to KO Zoroark, right? Maybe it's Dragapult, right? So you have Pekarunt on the bench, and Pekarunt, well, it's low HP, but you still need to activate the Mochi. So you can use the Pekarunt, activate the Mochi, then swap out the Pekarunt for another 1 prize like a Monkey Dory or a Tatsugiri or whatever that doesn't just die to a Dragapult, right? And all of a sudden, you've gotten rid of that liability. You've swapped it out for a 1 prize Pokemon, and your opponent just can't win the game anymore. For example, something that happened yesterday was I had a Monkey Dory, and my opponent only had a Pheasantipity in play. And I knew they had boss because the previous turn they Cyranoed for a Meowth. So they were going to Meowth and boss up my Monkey Dory and KO that with the Pheasantipity. However, I was able to get rid of that Monkey Dory and swap it in for another Zekrom. So now I had 2 Zekroms on the bench, and there was nothing my opponent could KO, right? I had 2 Zoroarks and 2 Zekroms. That was my board state. There was nothing my opponent could KO with Pheasantipity, and I won the game because of that, right? And otherwise, I was going to lose. We don't play Toro, and we don't play Scoop Up Cyclone. we don't play Thornton, right? We have to play the Tomes, right? The Tomes are the new kind of switchy, get rid of stuff, add stuff kind of thing as well. And on top of that, something else which is pretty cool is you can kind of put yourself in a position to actually use special red card. For example, I had a Zekrom, which had 80 damage on it from Phantom Dive damage and also when I benched it into the Risky Ruins. So what happened was, since it had 80 damage, I swapped it out for a Zorua, and then the Zorua fucking dies, right? But then my opponent went down to 3 prize cards, so I was able to special red card them, and then also boss and KO both of their Dracloaks, leaving them with 0 draw power, and only a Dragapult and Dreepy on the bench. And they drew and attacked, and that was it, and I was able to knock out their Dragapult on the next turn, and I won the game basically because they had nothing to follow that up with, right? It is a really strong card. It is able to open up so many doors. I could keep talking to you about all these situations and all these specific scenarios and all these random things that have happened with the Tomes, but I'm not going to, because I think it's really important that you yourself go out and find these really interesting interactions. Like, it is just such a cool card. Like, for example, with the Badoo as well. Badoo is such a good card. Having it makes the deck feel better as well. You can slow stuff down. And even if you miss turn 1 Flame Body Cannon Nilgai, Darmanitan, or how did my stream call it? Darmanatutukan, something like that. Whatever. If you have Badoo, you can item lock next turn, tome out your Badoo for the little fire guy, evolve the fire guy, and bam, you've got fire guy out of nowhere, and your opponent's thinking, well, I have Shaman, but I didn't bench Shaman because I didn't think that was gonna fucking happen. And out of nowhere, you just go gun, right? Rock, paper, scissors. No, I choose gun, and it is really, really good. So I'm gonna be releasing a gameplay video of this deck a little bit later, as I was playing it on stream a bunch, and it's just really good. I think this card really does help Zoroark a lot. I don't know if it's the perfect way to play it just yet, but it definitely opens up a lot of doors. And I will be closing this one, so shout out to you guys. Thanks for watching. Close door, end video. Bye bye.